The National Museum of African American History is hiring. Great position, starting between $75,000 and $97,000. And guess what the job is? Latinx specialist. Come again? Be sure to stay tuned to the end, because there's one point that I think a lot of people are missing in this larger conversation. Welcome to Escaping the Echo Chamber. Recently on Twitter, it was announced by a gentleman, a new job, government job opening, and it's the Latinx specialist. But where that place is what's really going to get you. At the National Museum of African American History. That's where this position is opening up. And people went off. One gentleman on Twitter, Mike Baggs, was going off. He identifies as FBA. And he was like, listen, this is, you're trying to all lives matter our history. Latinx history is not African American history. This is bogus. A lot of people were agreeing with him. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're trying to act like you're just watering down our history. And like I said, that term is a really great term to describe what they're talking about. All lives mattering, in terms of, hey, we're gonna go from black to people of color. And this argument, I get this argument. I understand this argument. But there is some pushback. There are some people saying, hey, wait a minute, calm down. Listen, the slave ships just landed different places. We're still black. There are black people in the United States. There are black people in Cuba, Colombia, Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Nigeria, Haiti. Like, there's black people all over. We're still black. And they're right. We are still black. I get that. That point is exactly right. They're pushing back and they're saying that, hey, you're blowing this out of proportion. You're looking at this wrong. And there's some people who aren't in either of those two groups who are also chiming in. You've got Hispanic people who are chiming in, including Soledad O'Brien, who decided to say, oh, there are black Latinos. And others who are like, yeah, what, now we're not black? But I want to point out something, because there's one group that I think tends to have a wealth of knowledge of those groups that are talking. And that this group, has mentioned, hey, look at Arturo Schomburg, who right here in New York City in Harlem, the Schomburg Library, it's devoted to Black cultural studies. Boom, right there. But there is something I have to chime in and like, wait a minute, I think y'all are missing something. Yes, black people are in the United States, black people, Colombia, Cuba, Dominican Republic. I get it, absolutely right. But this isn't the National Museum of Black History. It's the National Museum of African American History. There's a distinction that I think we have to realize. What you're dealing with is a group of the diaspora, one particular group of the diaspora, and some within that group, because hey, I don't feel particularly aggrieved or slighted, but there are many that do. And I think it's disrespectful for everyone else in the diaspora to just ignore the concerns and the feelings of a group, a family. Like, we're a family. And if there's somebody in the family who's like, wait a minute, I don't think that I'm being recognized. I think that people are acting like I don't even exist. Like the middle child, not Jan Brady. No. Yeah, Jan Brady, the Jan Brady of the family. So I perfectly get that. But what we're dealing with here is the fact that if this is the National Museum of African American History, there's a distinction between black history. Because if it was black history, then you could be talking about a Kwame Nkrumah. You could be talking about a Haile Selassie, Jomo Kenyatta. You could talk about Marcus Garvey. But it's not a black history museum. It's an African American history museum. Now, I have taken issue with just talking about African American history, because I have a problem with just relegating my history to just 400 years. And 400 years, and I start as a slave. I've had a problem with that. But nonetheless, I get that many African Americans are upset about seemingly being erased and excluded from the conversation. I get it. Knowing that there's a difference between African American and black, and that African American is one group of the black family, of the African diaspora. Cool. That is a group, and we shouldn't be erasing that group from acknowledgement, from discussion, from existence. It doesn't make any sense. So I get what they're saying. And so I understand that there's a group that is very right in terms of the diaspora being, and us all being family, being related. But I also realize that the term being used is the African American History Museum, which means that they probably should stick to African American history, because I don't see the rationale. If we're already talking about African American history having existed in these 400 years, so if you're going to make the distinction by the title that you've given this museum of cutting us off from history that goes beyond that, why would you now all of a sudden feel that you could start looking for history outside of the borders that would be enclosed in that? That doesn't make any sense, because now you're potentially going to completely different lineages. And in fact, when I looked at it, it talks about Latin studies, which may include Afro-Latinos. What? May include? That means you're intentionally planning on bringing in not only non-African Americans, but non-Black history into this museum. Like, what? That is where you've got to realize that despite the fact that I see where the Pan-Africanists are coming from, of whom I'm one, but we've got to realize we're not dealing with Pan-Africanists talking about this. Pan-Africanists are not running this. This is not something that's being done in good faith, and we have to recognize that. This actually made me stop and think about the block, about how you'll have youngins from one block get into it, youngins from another block. They'll be shooting each other, killing each other, fighting each other, because, oh, you on my block. This is my block. You can't be on my block. You can't come here. And they're calling it their block, despite the fact that they do not own the land. They don't own the sidewalk. They don't own the parks, none of it. They don't own any property on this land. No houses, no buildings. And they don't even run the city or the area that it's in. They don't even run it. But yet they're willing to fight and put their lives on the line over their block. And that comes from a part of human psychology where we often place our self-worth on what we have, what we own. So if we don't own anything, if we don't have anything, we feel like we are worthless, and we're not. But that is often the way we feel. And I'm seeing that this is part of what's at play here, that we're dealing with the vestiges of all of these atrocities that have been committed against us. And because we're down bad, and face it, we're down bad, we want to have something. We need something of our own to make us feel worthwhile. But we have to realize, wait a minute, that's a basic part of human psychology, but it's not a productive part of human psychology. It's not a beneficial part of human psychology, because we can recognize our worth by who we are, by what we're capable of achieving, and by what we're capable of getting. So we may be down bad right now. That doesn't mean we're going to be down bad tomorrow. That doesn't mean we're going to be down bad forever. We can make it happen. We can make change. We can change the tide. We can turn the tables. And we have to stop letting this part of human psychology rob us of our self-determination, our pride, our dignity. I get it. I get why we're there. I get why this is happening, why we feel this way. But it is not beneficial. It is not in our best interest. And it doesn't actually get us the things we need. Because right now, the whole reason why we're having this conversation is because, one, we don't own that facility. We don't own the institution. If we owned our own institutions, we don't even need to have this conversation. National Museum, what? No. We have our museum, and we're going to hire whoever we need to hire for our museum, and have whatever sections we need to have in our museum. That's a different story. Then that's like, this conversation isn't even being had. This conversation isn't even being had at this point. Additionally, we don't run this museum. We don't even run it. We don't own it. We don't run it. We don't run this museum. And that's why we're at a position where these people can play these games and can take jabs at us. But here's the thing. If we have our own museums, we run our own museums, we'll go, oh, that fake joint? That's not even real. Like, just, in fact, take our names off that. Do that to something else. We got our stuff. Our stuff's over here. We run it. This is how it's going. We don't rock with that fake joint, whatever that is. Stop trying to capitalize off our history. That's what we can do if we run our institutions and own our institutions. And that's what the focus needs to be. That's what the move needs to be. That's what the power play is. Not us just up in arms over what they're doing. Yes, I'm not saying that what they're doing is right. No, But the whole point is, it's not even ours to begin with. That's the problem. That's the problem. We don't own it. We don't run it. The problem happened long before they decided to hire a Latinx specialist. Long before. But there's something else I want to point out. Because in this discussion between, them trying to all lives matter, there's something else they're trying to slip in. They're calling it not the Latino studies, not the Latino history, Latino specialist in Latino history, but it's specialist in Latinx history. Latinx. Hispanics have repeatedly and resoundingly repudiated and rejected that term. It's not their term. They don't want it. They're not using it. But they keep trying to push that terminology. White liberals keep trying to push this terminology, and Hispanics are like, that's not our language. What is that? That has no meaning to us. And that's what we're missing. Because despite this bigger issue that's being discussed, there's another issue they're trying to very subtly slide under the radar with the use of certain language. And I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss that one. I want to make sure we didn't fall asleep on that one either. As always, don't forget to hit the thumbs up, like, share, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. And if you disagree with me, if you think, no, this is ours, we need to fight for it, whether or not we run it, go ahead and give me a thumbs down. But tell me this in the comment section. Why wouldn't it be better to own and operate our own institutions? I'll see you next time.